These on testing. All right, we're going to get started, everybody. Come on in, please. Everyone, come on in. This is going to be an interesting session. We're going to give you some good pointers. All right, also, I ask this of my class all the time. My name is Reynolds. I'm your host. I'm a professor of communications at Bowie State University. I'm also a media personality. So I do television. I'm called a pop culture commentator. So I talk about all things sports, entertainment, and politics. You can catch me this Monday on Pix 11. I'm going to be overviewing the Grammys. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'll be out there on Sunday. This will be my third time covering the Grammys. I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited. So I ask of all my students this all the time. If you don't mind, those in the back, can you please come forward? I want to see your beautiful smile. I want to make sure I can hear you and see you. So if you don't mind, if you can come forward. I had a professor tell me one time, where you sit in the room is where you stand on the issue. Where you sit in the room is where you stand on the issue. Gotcha. Gotcha. But on a serious note, this is a very serious conversation that we're going to have. And instead of serious, let's call it powerful. We're going to have a powerful conversation where we're not just talking about marginalized voices, right? We're unpacking real, unfiltered state, the unfiltered state of marginalized voices in our workplace, in our industries, and even sometimes at home, right? Sometimes at home. And no, this is not going to be just another panel discussion. Nope, you're in the wrong session. We're going to get down and dirty with it, and I can't wait to hear what Tony has to say. All right, so, but on the real, let me just see by a show of hands, how many people here have ever been the only person in the room who looked like you, spoke like you, or even thought like you? Raise your hand. Oh, we all got something in common. We all got something in common. That's awesome because, yeah, all of us have a similar story, but all of us deal with it differently, right? All right, so let me introduce my esteemed panel who's going to help us unpack all of this today and keep it real and keep it raw, Tony, keep it raw. First up, of course, a Googler, Tony Chambers. Welcome to the stage. You can sit beside me. You can sit beside the principal. Okay. All right, next up, oh my God, I met this fiery young lady. She was assigned to my session, and baby, she came out hot. Claudia Hernandez, where are you? In the restroom. All right, come on, Claudia, come back. Dana White, please join me on the stage. It's so interesting. Anywhere, right there would be good. Dana White, believe it or not, I'm going to let them tell you about themselves, but Dana met her for the first time working on this session. And she lives in Charlottesville, Virginia, or from Charlottesville, Virginia. She's in the D.C. area now. And guess what? I went to University of Virginia and studied architecture in Charlottesville. My two sisters actually now live in Charlottesville, so what a small world it is, right? Oh, you from Charlottesville too? That's a great wine country too. Claudia. All right, Claudia, come on. Claudia was probably somewhere changing some policies around here or something, right? Last but not least, Carla McIntosh. Come on up, beautiful. All right, Carla. All right, so before we get started, let's just start with Carla first. And Carla, tell us why you feel like you're the right person for this panel, and give us a little background about yourself.
First, I am so excited about being here. For those of you that do not know, I worked at Google for about 6.5 years, and I was in the Bay Area and then relocated to Atlanta. But my background is in talent acquisition. I've been doing it for 26 years. Prior to that, I was an Air Force veteran, and I used to control fighter jets. So I made a very crazy, non-traditional leap into tech. While at Google, I led hiring for some of the most prominent product areas across the company. So I jokingly say, if you have an Android, you open it up, you look at the icons. Most of the icons there, I've built the engineering teams. Things like Google Photos. If you use Google Lens, I built that team that did the product. I left, thank you, thank you. I left Google in 2022 and went to Reddit to be their first ever Black executive hired in any function as the VP of Talent Acquisition, and in large part to help them go public, which they IPO'd in March of 2024. I left them in July, taking a much needed break, but I got called up recently and I'm advising a startup called Silo Ventures. But I feel like I'm the right person for the job here because I have literally lived this experience. And because of my non-traditional background going into high tech, it has been amplified. And so I pride myself on paying it forward.
All right, Carla. All right, Claudia.
Hello. Hola, everyone. How are you? My name is Claudia Hernandez. I'm so grateful to be part of this panel. Thank you to Larry for inviting me. And I'm so honored to be here. To tell you guys a little bit about me, I was born and raised in Panama my whole life, so proud Panamanian. Yay! And my mom is from Puerto Rico. So half of my family, exactly. Bayamon. Bien. Half of my family is from Puerto Rico, so I always say I'm best of both worlds. I mean, you may not agree, but I don't care. Throughout my high school experience, you know, my mom did study in the United States, and she always told my dad, they're gonna do school here, they're gonna live here, but they're gonna go to the United States for education, whether you like it or not. And what my mom says is law, so that's what happened. I graduated, and I went to Florida State. Immediately, what I noticed was that it was the first time in my life that I was different, because I was born and raised in a place where everyone was like me and everyone spoke my language. And then I came to the United States and not everyone spoke my language. People did not understand my lingo, how I talked. I could be a lot. And it was just like I started identifying the stereotypes that I would see on TikTok and the internet. And I decided, okay, I have to be outside of my comfort zone and I have to immerse myself in this culture and this world. So what do I have to do to be successful? And I decided to join a professional business fraternity called Alpha Kappa Psi. And I learned a lot of things. And during that, I learned that I had no experience because all of my friends had something in their resume. They were waiters. They had a little internship. In my house, you could not work. It was illegal in Panama to work before you were 18. So that's when I decided, okay, it's time to get an internship. And I applied for anything, whatever. And I got an internship selling power tools in Home Depot in Puerto Rico. 8 long months, like very long months, but I learned a lot. What I learned, not retail, not for me, but tech. And I identified that I liked a lot of things, and that's when I decided to apply for Uber. And I got my first internship, and I was actually the first set of interns that were for sales and marketing that Uber had released worldwide. I was part of the Uber Freight team, which is the biggest logistics company in the world. And after I did that for 2 years, everyone in Uber knew that my dream was Google. Since I was like 12 years old, I saw that movie, The Internship, and I told my dad, oh yeah, that's where I'm working. And in my house, there was no dream that you could say no to. So it happened. And I started my job hunt, and now I'm here, and I'm in an early graduate program called the Cloud Sales Residency. And immediately as I joined, because that's how I am, I got super involved, especially in the Latino community. I noticed a lot of things, and then they recruited me, and now I'm the co-lead for the Hola ERG here at the Atlanta office, which is super exciting.
Nice.
But yeah, I know I talk a lot, but yeah, that's me, that's my story.
Excellent.
So I'll just tell you all a quick factoid, fun fact, while Larry's not here. So I am from Charlottesville, Virginia. I grew up in Charlottesville. And my older brother used to look after Larry when we were kids. So
Look
yeah.
after, babysit?
Yes.
Ooh, do tell.
And
Do tell.
he was as great a young man as he is a man. But yes, we lived in the same neighborhood, and my brother used to take care of Larry. So why am I on this panel? So I'm not going to go through my whole career, but I will just pointedly say, in terms of you're on mute, Number one, I have worked in politics most of my career. I'm a Republican. I worked for John McCain at the Senate Armed Services Committee. I worked on his campaign. My very first job was on the Hill. I was a press secretary for the House Republican Conference. And I've worked at Fox. So like when I say I've been in spaces that there are not that many of us or people who look like me are, I have. From Fox to the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. I also worked at Nissan and Renault, so I was actually based in Paris for 3 years. I worked in Hong Kong for the Wall Street Journal, and my degree is actually in Chinese history, so I'm a Mandarin speaker.
Wow.
and a French speaker. So I've worked with the military, and I didn't even mention the military. So I served on the China desk my very first time at the Pentagon, and then I served as the chief Pentagon spokesperson during Trump's first administration. So when we hit Syria, like you can go back, I was the one who told the world we hit Syria in April of 2018. So I've been in a lot of spaces when she brought up, like, you're the only one. I used to meet with the Secretary of Defense every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I was the first one to go, and I was the only person of color, and I was the only woman. And I spoke first. So when I say that I've maneuvered, being in spaces where people don't necessarily expect you, I've had an incredible career, and I'm really, really grateful. And I really want to get into the conversation. But those are the spaces I've been in. And when the last panel, and she says, your ancestry. So my grandfather ran the newspaper in Charlottesville, the black newspaper in Charlottesville. So I take all of them with me everywhere I go. And they are the people that I feel most indebted to make sure I show up, and I show up well, because I know who they were, and I know that they ran the hardest race they could run, and they ran as far as they could go. And so I always think of myself as holding the baton, their baton, and I am not supposed to look around. I'm not supposed to make other people's problems my problems. My job is to run my race. And I will say this, I'm so proud because I graduated from the University of Chicago, and my niece just got into the University of Chicago. Woo! And so I'm like so excited that like legacy worked for us. I'm very excited that we got enough time, that a little helped. So I'm just really thrilled to be here. So thank you for coming today.
All right.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'll be quick. Tony Chambers, why am I here? I don't know. I had nothing to do with Syria. I have no idea. I run an organizational effectiveness group over in Google Cloud. I'm here because I am a DEI dinosaur. I have been in this space long before it was a function at work, and well before, it was a philosophy taught in schools. So I'm responsible for some of those programs, like, the co-ops for HBCUs and HSIs that come out of OEM manufacturing. I cut my teeth in HR and DEI at a company called Sodexo, biggest company no one's ever heard of, but I service the international large accounts. So Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Alcatel-Lucent, Toyota were some of the places where I was able to impact, supplier diversity, how we're finding our talent, what we're doing to retain that talent. So left Sodexo and went with one of my clients, which was Toyota, which is how I met Kim, and I was supporting the supplier diversity function, also creating those tools and resources. Fun fact, I even opened up the first state-run civil rights museum in the country, and that was in Mississippi. Remember that?
All right.
So still the only one, but we kind of redirect and operationalize the work that's happening. So doing the right thing, making sure it touches your bottom line. basing it in research. Those are things that I've been doing for a very long time. So I also am a graduate of Tennessee State University, HBCU grad.
All right.
I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I am hello, in the building, always in the building. Detroit's always in the building. Kind of lived everywhere, but I am a Black gay guy who talks really loudly and they don't come much muted, more muted than that. So found my voice and I'm hoping to help you find yours too.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. And I'll give you a little bit about my background, similar to these here. I started out, you got good here. I started out at Warner Lambert. I actually worked in the pharmaceutical division of Warner Lambert, Park Davis. I launched Lipitor. I launched Resolin. These are multi-billion-dollar drugs, and I was on the launch team before we sold to Pfizer. I launched Viagra. Ooh, the days, baby. We had a lot of money then. Ooh, is Larry's not here, is he? All right, and then I transitioned from that, and I went into banking on Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street for 10 years at Merrill Lynch under the helm of Stan O'Neill. So I don't know if many of you know who he is, but he was the first African-American male in the history of investment banking to be CEO of an investment banking firm. Not in the country, but in the world. We worked in the world headquarters in the World Financial Center in New York City, transitioned out of that. I then went to Gant Clothing Line. I was an ambassador there. Went from Gant Clothing Line then to, I was the EVP over at SiriusXM on the Urban Talk platform. Needless to say, in all of these transitions, in all of these jobs, I only saw one of me. And most of the time is when I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. And it's interesting because when you find yourself in these C-suite situations and jobs, there aren't a lot of people that look like me. And especially in banking, there weren't even women that you saw on the other side of the table. And that's what we're going to talk about, being that not only marginalized voice, but also underrepresented, okay? So we're here to talk about, you're on mute, can you hear me now? We're going to talk to you about how we can navigate it. I would like to start with the quote by Martin Luther King, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." How does that feel, especially in the times that we're in right now, right? This is a time that we have to be more vocal and more present and sharing our voice more than ever, right? All right, so here we go. Barriers to inclusion in corporate America. Some people feel silenced in meetings, 45%. Managers encouraging diverse perspectives, only 18%. Perceiving culture favors assimilation, 60%, and Black CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, only 5%. So this is my question for the panel. What has been some of your biggest friction points keeping diverse voices muted in corporate spaces today? All right, Carla, let's start with you.
I think that a lot of people walk into meetings and they don't feel or see a clear path. And they experience these sort of microaggressions and the repackaging of statements that they've made. So I think how many folks, just show of hands, especially if I can, the women in the room, you've had an amazing idea. You've said what you said. People blew it off. Few speakers later, male says what you said. It's the best thing ever. Yeah. So that for me is the thing that I could say.
Okay, let's go to you, Dana. Let's skip Claudia for a second. Let's go to you, Dana.
So I have a really good story on that very thing. Sorry, thank you. I think some of the time is people walk into a room and think people are thinking about you more than they're thinking about you. They're not thinking about you. Honestly, as a communications person, people are thinking about themselves. And the more you understand that people are thinking about themselves, and the only way they're looking at you is, how are you going to serve me? How are you going to help me? Or how are you going to damage me, right? So it's really important to come in with solution-minded and also not expecting. Like, one thing I was always taught is, like, don't expect a fanfare. Like, you showed up. you have to bring value from the getty up, and you have to demonstrate that you can, and then everything else tends to go away. But I will mention, because I've worked with the military a lot, which is a distinct breed, and it's all white, and generally it's all white males, right? I used to work for General McChrystal, and I kept hearing this thing where I would say something, and they didn't hear it. And then literally, I said it was Tuesday. A man said, it's Tuesday. And they're like, yeah, that's great. Thanks for letting it's Tuesday. And I was like, what is going on? And I feel like this is a safe space. I didn't believe white women, because I felt like white women told me that all the time. Like, they don't hear us. And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. I didn't take them seriously until it happened. I actually found it amusing. But then I learned something. Military guys can't hear. It's true. I had to learn to lower my voice. They used to say, Dana say, unique New York. I had to kind of sound like a drag queen because they couldn't hear the tenor of my voice. And it was like a trick I had to learn with working with the secretary, because I would frustrate him because he's trying to hear me, and there's airplanes, and I was like, sir, I would always have to lower my voice. It's like, we have to go. And that's why they couldn't hear me. It wasn't, at least in my scenario, it wasn't a gender thing. It was the octave of my voice, because they can't hear.
Claudia?
I think a lot of it, and I always say, like, the biggest obstacle that you have in your life, most of the time, it's yourself. And something that you really have to be is self-aware. That's number one. Once you're self-aware, then we can talk about unconscious bias. Because what you portray and what you bring in the room, people can read it. So we, as immigrants or as people that are different than others in environments where you're different, you really need to believe it. It's not only fake it till you make it. It's like, do the work. Look at yourself in the mirror and do, like, okay, what is it that you think people don't like about you? Why do you think that? And go through that. Understand that. Once you understand that, you're gonna have all the power in the world, and even if people around you are mean to you or they discriminate you, you're gonna have all the power, because when you come in that room, they know the value that you bring. And then they cannot say no. It's not like a battle that to be won because they don't have anything against you or any power against you, because whatever it is that they had, you gave it away because you did that work yourself. And that's a them problem, not a you problem anymore. So, yeah.
All right, Tony, before you answer it now, you know I like keeping it real. All right, so let's talk about corporate culture, right? And let's talk about when you come into these corporations, there's a built-in culture that's been there for hundreds of years. And you are foreign to them sometimes. And in your case, you could be not just because you are a black male, but you are also LGBTQ+. Talk to me about how you juggle assimilation, because you want to be a part of the corporate culture, but also maintaining your authenticity.
It's important. You guys can hear me, right? I don't need this. Okay. I'm loud. Thankful. A tool I got every time. It's different.
Oh yeah, for the recording.
Better? Sorry. I'll comply. I'll comply.
Right, I see.
Exactly. So there is a dance that you have to do. It's not right. But it's what needs to happen. When I first started my career, I was, getting my first big boy job. I remember going to Unilever to interview in New York and flying in, and I would cut my hair really low, no facial hair. I wanted to look as ethnically ambiguous as humanly possible. I am from Detroit. We have our own culture. So I remember my father taking me, to get suits for my first big boy job, and we're fighting because I'm like, I can't wear them shadow boxes over there. I need a blue suit and a gray suit, and that's it, and a red tie. Like,
Right,
that's
exactly.
it. I did my best because I think my first lesson in American respectability politics was my grandmother telling me, ketchup and flies with honey is still sticky, right? You've got to come in, understand where you are, know what resonates with those people, still bring you, but you got to research first before you bring the totality of what you're going to bring in. You can never bring your full self, right? You know, you got to understand the dimensions. Your mom's house is G-rated. Church is sacred. Well, work is financially hazardous.
Right.
So you have to pay attention, right? So understand, research. You guys know when I first meet folks, you know, it's kind of a trick. I'm really, really quiet because I'm listening and I'm researching. I need to understand what resonates. Then you can't get me to shut up once I realize what I'm dealing with, right? I understand what I need to wear. I understand what I need to do. But I will tell you what always resonates with everyone in corporate America is research.
All right.
So, you know, you're not just only, you know, your data-driven arguments, but like your data-driven like impact as it relates to the people that are in front of you. This person resonates with specific dollar sign amounts. This person is looking for impact in a different way.
Carla, I want to come back to you. So what does that time period look like when you first come into this culture, right? And you're trying to figure it all out, you're listening, you're looking. How long does it take you to really kind of find your voice in that culture? And then how do you find your voice?
So I think it starts even before you get into the situation. If you're going to attend a meeting, do your homework. Understand what is the purpose of the meeting. Who are the players in the meeting? Do as much research as you can. And to Tony's point, then you understand if you're going to speak, strategically leverage your voice.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I've been in meetings where a person will, there's someone that has some negative sentiment, and then another person just piles on and say, yep, I hate that too. That is the worst thing that you can do. Do not +1 something that's negative and then bloviate about it. That is not helpful to you. If you speak, strategically speak, and let your words be profound. If it is not a new data point, idea, thought that is going to advance the conversation towards the goal that you researched to know it's about, hold it. So actually the answer is, because if you think about it, once you speak, so people have their biases and their assumptions about what you may sound like or how smart you are. But when you speak, you put meat on the bone for that. So everybody has, 2 ears, 1 mouth. You listen, and when you speak, see if there's a gap in the conversation. Is there something new that you can add to advance the conversation, and then you speak? Or you defer, and I will say, this has not come up yet, but I think it's important. The number one thing that we can do is to be the ally that we may have never had. So if you are someone and you see that someone else had an idea and they just got blown past, speak up. I believe in karma and putting positive energy into the ecosystem. If you do that, someone inevitably, maybe that same person, may help you. But also, let's go back to preparation. If you're in a meeting and there's probably someone that you know in the meeting, I always pregame. And I say, if I start flapping around, if I get stuck, I need you to have my back. Or if someone speaks over me, I need you to cover for me and have my back and bring it up. Yeah, just like Carla said. That's a very simple tactic, but in corporate America, it is profound, it is money. And the funny thing is, me as an underrepresented, non-traditionally background person in high tech, funny story, back when I was actually at Google, white male pulled me aside and said, Carla, we're in this meeting. If I get stuck, can you cover for me? And I just had that aha moment because I let people know I'm about paying it forward. And that person used the strategy that I used, and I just thought in that dynamic, it was just weird for me to have it happen, but I was glad to do it because I, tightened my bond with that person, and then I set an example for other people there.
Hey, I like that. Tony, let's talk about this because she touched on allyship. Is that the same as mentorship? Are they two different people in the office? What's the difference?
You've got to define that for yourself, right? So for me, allyship and mentorship differ because mentors are some people who share a similar experience that I do, but they're in a different place, right? Someone that potentially looks like me, potentially went to a school similar to mine. An ally whispers my name in a room that I don't have access to.
Got it.
They give me a level of agency that's really important. and to your point, Carla, that I can't emphasize the importance of the meeting before the meeting, right? People of color, we know that there is so much bias, conscious and unconscious, that takes place. The way that you equalize that and neutralize that, I should say, is to have those conversations beforehand, right? That's a part of the research that you've got to do. That's where you develop that allyship. Doesn't matter what level that person is at. This is the discussion. These are my thoughts. This is what I think my contribution is going to be. What do you think? Does that jive?
Yeah, but how do we do that as people that look like us? That's not there. Who do we know that? I mean, how do we know that they're going to be an ally for us? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you say, okay, we're going to have a meeting? You find people that are going to be in the meeting, and you try to be nice to them. You try to like break an ice with them. Like, what? How do you find that allies? I guess is the question that I really want to know.
You consistently stack the deck, right? So involvement is important. So Claudia will tell you this. Those employee resource groups are very important. So that's an acknowledgement that this person has done really well in their job, and they have such a good like hold on the work that they're doing that they are willing to take some of their working time and donate it to a place and space where they may not get that same level of visibility and they won't get paid, right? So you've already got those people that have the pre-existing moral obligation to other folks and to the larger community in your ecosystem. That is, shooting fish in a barrel, right? Thinking about some of those other sub-communities that exist, finding folks there, listening to them, and sometimes it's about cold calling. If you've seen somebody like, I'll give you an example. Miss Gail King was one of my first mentors from far away. 15 years ago, I was very junior in my career, and I remember just pulling her aside, coming fresh off of an Urban League stage, and I was like, "Hey, I am like a child. I am a tadpole in this HRDEI space. Right. What do I need to do?" And she gave me a lot of the things that I needed, and she has a lot of influence in those other rooms. Always has, and I see she always will. So.
Got it. All right, Carla, Dana, I want to go to you really quickly before we shift to the next question. I always want people to empower or give tips that people can hear today and use today. For women, and I find, especially for myself, let's talk about the language that we use in meetings, right? Because that's very important on how people respect you in the room when you do talk. So can we talk for a second about, we've had this offline where a lot of times in meetings we say, I think, when we share, I recommend, I think, maybe. What are those solid words that we should be using? So instead of I think, we should be saying, I recommend. So we come with more confidence so that the people in the room will listen and hear us better. What are some other tips that you can give us?
So here are a couple of tips invaluable, especially if you're a woman working around a lot of men, just being very real about communications. I used to get called up to the office, and I would think through everything I was thinking on the way up the steps. Because that's kind of how we tell these stories. So, I was there, and there were flowers, and we do that, right? And men don't want to hear any of that. I would see women crash and burn because they just kind of went over a man's word count for the day, honestly. And military men are particularly short. They're copy, okay. They're even shorter than corporate men, right? So I would have to think through my whole thing. So by the time I got in front of him, I just had the answer. It's like, sir, this is what's happened. This is what action we're taking. And it was fine. So for women in particular, it's so important to consolidate and make your thoughts really, really succinct so that when you actually speak, it's this is where we are, this is what we're doing. I don't even do recommendation. I don't say recommendation. It's okay. Because I gotten called in, you called me in for a reason, so here's what I'm going to tell you. This is what it is. And he can say yes, he can say no. And I find that 99% of just that confidence and just that brevity with men in particular, they're like, good, go, good. It's taken off the table. So brevity, and like I said, think through things, and you have been brought there for a reason. So don't shy away, because I would get in arguments with the secretary, and I was the only person who could argue with him and win, because I brought to him, this is why you can't do this, and now you're going to be late. And he'd be like, and he'd go and do what I said to do, right? Because I showed value, and I showed a concern for whoever I'm serving. And it's that servant leadership. But those are just some key, keep it brief and make it solution. Don't bring somebody, male or female. I don't like, it's a work thing. I don't like people bringing problems to me. I want you to tell me what the problem is, but what are you going to do about it? I need a solution. And so stay really solution oriented, and I think your credibility in an organization will really rise.
Adding value, that resonates with me. One of the things that I did and taught by my mentor was, and this is how I became the facts guy. If you know me, I'm the facts guy. I'm the research guy. And I always came to the meetings doing my research and having facts surrounding what the meeting is going to be about. So if there was any kind of like trying to, he just silencing me, then you're silencing the facts. You're silencing the research. So in fact, you can't silence me because I've already built my insulated space that I'm going to occupy with these facts, with this research. So that's one of the tactics that I've always used. Because one thing you can't say is what a fact is not, right? You can debate it, but a fact is a fact, right? So I would say that's one thing. All right, let's keep it moving. This is getting juicy. All right, that's our friction point. This is why we have those friction points: lack of representation, unconscious bias, exclusionary practices, and also lack of mentorship. And I think what we shared here is that we need allies in our space, and it's very important we figure out how to build those allies within our organization. Let's go to the next question. All right, this is cool, and I know you got some good strategies here. What practical tools and strategies can individuals from underrepresented backgrounds use to amplify their voices in meetings, projects, and leadership roles? All right, Carla, I know you looking like you got something for me.
Love this one. Super simple thing to do. Everybody's been in a meeting, and then at a certain point, the ideas start flowing. You be the person that starts the document.
Yep.
I can't emphasize that enough. I held 4 roles in 6.5 years across Google. There were documents that I started that may have been very rough that evolved into these beautiful strategies or plan. 6.5 years later, I would have people all over the world still asking me for access to that document through the highest levels of the company. Mm-hmm. So what it does is it lets you go positively viral. So it's a simple thing. You start the doc. Sounds crazy, right? But think about how many times your name will now pop up in random people. And after a while, they're going to say, well, who is this person? So that's one really easy one. And it takes very little effort.
In fact, you started the doc in this group. That's so interesting. Tell me, though, Tony, like for you, how important is it? Another tactic that I do is after the meeting, I send out a recap. So I'll be the leader in documenting the conversation. And if they don't agree, this is your time to speak up. If not, we're all on the same page. What are your thoughts about that?
Same, but that starts before the meeting is over, right?
That's
so
right.
At the end of the meeting, it's like, okay, so this is what I heard.
Right.
These are the key points. These are the key takeaways. This is who is responsible for what. Am I hearing that appropriately? Is that what we're doing? Okay, that's what we're doing. So we're all in agreement. We're all in concert. Mm-hmm. When I send out all of that stuff and then those subsequent meeting requests afterward,
right.
You know it's coming.
All right. How about you, Dana?
I would say get out of your comfort zone and look for the people that you want to be like. So I had it was kind of divine, but people don't remember what you do, they remember how you do it. The manner in which whatever it is that you're doing, they remember you picked up that phone, you were always polite. I work in politics a lot, so your reputation about how you carry yourself, because you are going to have to represent someone, you're a part of someone's organism, is also go ask people, hey, how did you do that? Because everyone's favorite subject is themselves. They will never, ever turn down a coffee. And they're like, I just want to know, so how did you become the CEO? And it's shocking. You might actually go have lunch with the CEO, but if you don't ask, you don't know. Or you see someone who's a VP, and you're like, I really admire you. I'd just like to understand like how you navigated your career. 100% of the time, I will go ahead and say 100% of the time, that person, one, will remember you, two, will make an effort to engage with you, and then three is more than likely going to be an ally. And that person may very well not look like you, but they will say, you know, she's a reception. This happened to me. I wasn't expecting it. Jenny Thomas just like said, hey, come to my office. I was like, why? Like, why? What are we doing? And she just was like, you're too young to be working at a think tank. She just straight up told me, you're too young to be working at a think tank. You don't have children. You're not married. You shouldn't be working at a think tank. And then she proceeded to get me a job in the administration. So go to people who are doing the things that you want to do, and they'll always talk to you.
Sure.
Excellent point, and it's one of my strategies for now. I used to do BD work way back in the day, and a lot of times people are wired to start at the lower levels. You're worried, right? You can't make a shot you never take. I think instead of saying, I'm going to build my way up, start at the top. Here's why. You start with, tell me about yourself, all of this stuff. Immediately, once you're done with the meet, if they give it to you, using the tactics or the reason she said, connect with them on LinkedIn. Once you've met with them, say, who else in your organization would you recommend that I meet? And then ask them, would you mind doing an intro? Now, if they don't, may I use your name? Yes. Guess what? If you've met the VP, when you go and reach out to any person underneath them, because you've already met with the VP and the VP said you were worthy, that softens the ability for anybody beneath that person to then meet with you. So you talk about amplifying your voice, and then with every single person, you do the exact same thing. Now that we've spoken, who else do you recommend that I meet? Would you do an intro, et cetera, et cetera? So again, it's about taking yourself positively viral, and before you know it, you have this brand, because hopefully you've prepared for each of those meetings to talk about, how do I leave them with 3 things? If each meeting they don't walk away understanding what you're about and how you want to be seen, and then you ask advice, you humble yourself. What are some things that you recommend that could get me there in this organization? Right. And you replicate that across all those meetings, I guarantee you will have an amplified, underrepresented voice.
Really quickly, Tony, we talked about this. We talked about prepared data-driven arguments. So when you coming in, make sure you have your research, your data, your facts, leverage allyship and mentorship. We spoke about this on our call, the use of micro interventions. Give it to me in 30 seconds. How important is that?
Very. Micro interventions are everywhere. Like where we start that is how we show up in the room. And so we'll talk about we talked about bringing our full selves to work, what we're going to wear, stuff like that. I've got a nephew that swears I am an old fogey and the things I'm doing is assimilation, right? But I'm like, no, you need to pay attention to what's happening, what you're doing, because your implicit proximity to that white male cisgender person is going to give you that opportunity. It's not right. But some of those micro interventions include trying to make sure that I know I'm wearing something that will resonate with that person, reaching out to that person, to Carla's point, understanding the problem that I'm trying to solve, and then having about 3 or 4 different solutions to keep me from going to the I space, or maybe, or I think we should. It keeps me in a place of saying, okay, well, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to drive results from a recruitment perspective, this is what we should do. If we're trying to save money, then this is what we should do. Those are the micro interventions that I have always employed.
But one of the micro interventions that I've employed in all my jobs is I go straight to the head. I go straight to the top, and I say to them, in fact, I think one of my bosses is in here now. I went straight to her and I said, hey, I don't know how to do anything less than give you a 10. I'm gonna work hard. Tell me though, if you can, okay, I got you. Tell me though, how can I be better? How can I be a better team member? How can I be a better leader? And what do I need to work on? And it gives them the opportunity to download without them, because most of your leaders don't like confrontation. Like you said, they're not gonna tell you until it's your review. So for me, a micro intervention is getting in front of that. So they can tell me, well, maybe you could be more X, Y, Z. And I tell you, the sooner you start that process, the better it'll be for your career. All right, we're being told our time is up. This is the last question because I think this is really good. We're going to go down the panel. We're going to get 30 seconds from everybody. How can we address the tension between assimilation, old fogey, and authenticity? Should professionals from marginalized groups adapt to fit in, or should corporate culture adapt to accommodate diverse perspectives? What you think, Carla?
Meet in the middle, understanding we have many elements that make us who we are, but some elements are more appropriate to be leveraged than others in different moments, so use them wisely.
Claudia?
Okay. I think I have a different perspective. It is in the middle. You have to understand the balance of it. Let's say that you go into a room or you're in a situation in a company that you're trying to fit in and they constantly do not get you and you really don't know what else to do and you have followed everyone's advice. So what do you have to do to get there, to get to the place that actually values you? Because that was my experience. I said, okay, I saw where my dad worked. I saw how Latin American companies worked, and I didn't like it. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing everything I have to do. I'm putting myself there, but they're not giving me the place. Let me do research. What are the types of companies that I would fit in? Now, what do I need to do to get there? And that's why I'm here in Google. Because I said, oh, Google, the company that lets you sleep at work. Google, the company that if you're Latina, you can work whatever, you can wear whatever. They don't value different things that maybe traditional corporate cultures do. And I think that's very Gen Z of me. I said, I saw my sister, I saw everyone struggling. I said, but why are you there still? Like, do not settle. Like, okay, what do we have to do to get there? Because I'm sure the place exists. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, Dana.
So one thing I would say is, I think it's actually an advantage sometimes being underrepresented in a minority. I studied in China, and one of the things that was really freeing for me was that I was used to not being the one, right? I'm a minority in my own home. So going to a place where, again, I'm a minority, I was fascinated. My white counterparts had a harder time because it was mainland China, and the Chinese do what the Chinese do, and they really just don't care about you. And I found it refreshing, and I found it to be an asset. And so when you say about assimilation and authenticity, I almost feel like it's more about principles, right? Like, bring your principles to work. Don't bring all of you, as we've kind of talked, don't bring all of you to work. And I think it's also generational to some degree, and I'm trying to be fast, but generational, because I still feel as a Black woman, and in the rooms I'm in, I'm often the only one. It's easy to remember everything I do, good or bad, right?
All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
And then,
Quick.
very quickly, and to your point, understand, we want you to be yourself. I want to be my full self every day, but that one of oneness comes with a level of responsibility. You're responsible for what that nuanced identity of your people will be to those folks in that room. So you want to come your best, and then also sneak some of your talent and some of your magic up on these folks.
Right.
I keep a toolkit that people don't know about until it's absolutely necessary to pull out.
In that Burberry bag?
Really
quickly, I will say this. It's great. You have to assimilate in the beginning. It's not 50-50, but you can move people very quickly with how you behave in the culture, right? So I say you have to go in, you have to figure out how you're going to get people to shift, because if you come in and just rattle the cage, the first thing they're going to do, you got to remember that culture was there for 100 years. You just got there. You just signed up. So you got to come in, you got to peep the game. You can stay true to yourself and still assimilate, right? But then you move the people with all of your greatness. You move them to the 50-50. And you teach them. You make them comfortable. And then that's when you win. All right, really quickly, let's see what we got. All right, so the power of authentic self-expressions at work: engaged employees, diverse workplace, collaborative teams, empowered workforce, interactive engagement, shared moment when you feel muted or invisible in a professional setting, but we don't have time to hear from you guys. We were gonna do a poll. Sorry, you're muted. I had so much. All right, so these are takeaways. Let's do these takeaways really quickly, and then we're gonna end the session. So number one, like everyone shared, leverage data as ammunition. All right, arm yourself with concrete data on the challenges faced by marginalized group. Embrace your authenticity. Avoid the pressure to assimilate. Bring your full authentic self to the table. Your unique perspectives and experience are a superpower. We all know that by now, right? Identify and activate allies. I can't tell you how important this is. Find colleagues, managers, and executives who are committed to inclusion. Leverage their influence and support to amplify your voice. And strategize your approach. Please strategize. Just don't wake up and just burrow through there. Plan your interventions, right? Thoughtfully. Understand the context and choose your battles wisely. Be assertive, but maintain a professional demeanor. Those are our takeaways. And I want to end with Alice Walker, and I'll get to you here. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. We all have power and voice. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to open it up. I know that we are running late, but I want to make sure we're fair. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be sitting here, whatever questions.
We'll entertain them as long as they don't throw us out. Questions?
We weren't the hour late ones, okay?
Any questions? Joyce, I know you have a question. No question?
No, I just absolutely agree with everything that everyone said. You walk into the room, you got to be equipped. Know the room, know who you're playing to, have an agenda, do not side. Be the aggressive one to set the table the way you want it on set, and then you'll be in control.
All right, let's go right here in the red.
So when you're in a space, your voice is marginalized, and you've gone through all the techniques, didn't work, leaving the company is not feasible at that particular time.
Okay,
What are your next steps?
that's a good one.
I'm in talent acquisition, so I'll tell you. So sometimes you can't, I think you make decisions with either your heart or your head. Your heart might say, they tick me off, I'm out of here. Not smart, that's passion, don't do it.
Yeah.
Your head says, I can't afford financially to walk away right now. So maybe the allies that you start to talk to aren't the ones in the company, or if you have a trusted circle in the company that can help you, hey, you start lining it up. Slide on LinkedIn. Can you write me a written recommendation? Start setting the deck. Start applying for roles. Get advice from your trusted circle on where are places that you think I could go. But keep it close to the vest. But start to do all the things that you need to do: the pre-work, the planning, get your resume together. But for me, one of the biggest ones: get your LinkedIn updated.
Right.
Get those written recommendations. Find out who would be willing to be a reference for you if and when you do decide to leave the company. And then most importantly, if you have, you're with a company, any benefit you haven't use, be smart.
Yeah, in that I also create my own brag sheet.
Yeah.
All right, right here. Sorry. Okay, right here.
No microphone? Okay, no worries. I want everyone to hear. So I have a question for Claudia and also the rest of the panelists. I know there's a lot of people that reach out to you for help. How do I land a job wherever you're working at? And it's so easy to just say, help me land a job, but it's actually, how do you guys like to be approached in terms of, it's not only helping, but also understanding the other person that you're emailing, that you're sending a LinkedIn message. It's super easy to just say, help me, but what would be the best way to approach communication, even if it's long distance?
Okay, good question.
Oh my God, that's my kid. Okay, I think I just started working, and I'm in Google, right? And a lot of people text me. When I was trying to get a job in Google, I always tell the story. There was this kid in a cohort before me that I texted and through LinkedIn, and he answered. How did I text? I say, the first thing you need to know or you need to do, find that common point. For example, where did he go to college? Do you know someone there? Was he an alumni in your college? Start there. Number 2, your purpose. In the LinkedIn, people tell stories. I knew that he was somewhere from Africa, most likely Nigeria. One of my best friends is from Ethiopia, number 1. I knew that there was a possibility that he was working in the office that I wanted to be a part of. So maybe he felt more comfortable helping me out, because Google is worldwide. So you really have to find those similarities, and do not come at us, give me a referral. No. You need to say, can I have a chat with you, get to know you, understand how the role is. And then after, if the opportunity presents itself, most of the time they're gonna give it to you. You're not even gonna have to ask because they wanna help you. But you have to be different from everyone else that's just sending, hey, how are you doing? I would like a referral, can you help me? You need to do your research and your work.
May I
Okay,
add
one
thing,
more.
Al, this is, I think, really important,
Sure.
though. You have to make it easy for people to help you.
Yes.
You have to put some skin in the game. I get approached from people, all walks of life, product managers, you name it. Do you have anything for me? So what is that? Then that's shifted the dynamic of all the work is on me to figure out, well, what could they possibly do? Be thoughtful. I've taken a look at your website. I see these 3 roles. Here's my resume. I think I'm qualified because A, B, C, and D. Though I've not done A, B, C, and D, I have interest in these other areas, and I think that blah, blah, blah. And then anything else that you think is important as to why they should. That approach makes it easier for someone because in some cases, a lot of resumes aren't very linear where you can clearly look and see, this is what this person does. So if you don't do the pre-work, you put all the onus on the person you want to help. Guess what? We're all busy and working. So I'm going to help the person that made it easy for me to help them. Regardless of my heart, I may want to. My bandwidth won't allow me to help the person that throws it over and puts the work in my court.
All right, everybody, I would love to get to you, Dana. So sorry, but we have to go. Please give Carla, Claudia, Dana, Tony, Al a big round of applause. Thank you for your honesty.